Okay, now if the last video wasn't fun enough, this is really the fun stuff. See, the other stuff was like the kiddie stuff. Here's the really cool stuff. So here's what I wanted to be able to do. In our last video, we set this up to basically grow, which is going to scale, which is really nice and neat and everything else. But here's also what I can do to this. Now, what I want to do is pay close attention to this. I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to say Save As. Save As, and let's just call this version 1B, and let's call this _rotate. Now, here's what I want to be able to do. I want to rotate the photos and scale them, but I just want to rotate them clockwise or counterclockwise. That would kind of look silly. I want to keep them on the same plane. So one of the things I can do is I can rotate on the Y, which is left and right, or the Z, or the X, which is up and down axis. So how can we do this? Well, what I want to share with you is if you try to make another hover state. So as an example, I double click right now. Under transform, if I go to put another transformation, I've already exhausted that transformation. Okay? So you might think to yourself, again, if you're new to this, well, I'm just going to go make a whole new transition here. So I'm going to go do a new transition that's tied to the image. But notice that hover is not available because I've exhausted hover. So you might think to yourself, well, okay, I'll just do it to the active right now. I'll come down here to transform, and I'll basically do what I want to do, which is rotate, capital Y, and then 360 DEG. Well, that sounds logical. That sounds like it would work, and let's create a transition. Now, of course, what that did, that created the active transition, and that's not what I want. But then if you go back to your code, and you go ahead and change that back to hover, H-O-V-E-R, watch what happens. Okay, if I go back into here again, it changed this, but then it killed what I had originally. So apparently that's not the solution. So here's a very simple technique. We can do multiple transitions right in here. We double click, and what I want to be able to do is open up the dialog box. Okay. So I simply double click and open up that dialog box. So again, I just want you to pay close attention that I can't do another. Once you've exhausted one of these effects, one of these properties, you can't go back and apply a new property. We can add to the property very simply by simply doing a space. So I'm going to say space, rotate. Again, it's rotate y-axis and 360 DEG. Close the parenthesis. Save the transition, save the file, and just like that, boom, how slick is that? See, I teach the cool stuff, guys. You're not going to learn this stuff other places in this very simplistic, really realistic way. Now, keep in mind that I could have spent a div tag. I could have spent an article tag. I'm keeping this very, very simplistic. In this particular case, we're just spinning the photos. But I think that creates a really nice effect, something maybe people haven't seen before. Now let's take this one step further. Say you don't want to scale this at all. So I'm going to double click and simply kill the scale. So therefore it's just going to rotate in place, which is also a nice visual effect. So now if I go to live, so now it just spins right in place. But what it's doing here, which is really cool, I'm going to go back to my CSS rules, and I'm going to set the opacity here to something very, very small. So let's set the opacity to say 0.15. So I could barely see it. In fact, let's actually set that to 0.05, which is really, really faint. But then when I move over it, see, that's a really nice effect. See, that's probably you haven't even seen before. So what's happening, you can see there's something there. The viewer's going, oh, I kind of see something, but, oh, cool. So what it's doing, it's spinning into place and it's changing the opacity. Now, of course, this is going to be dependent on how you set your transitions. So if I double click back into that, maybe I want this to take just a little bit longer to happen. So let's make this happen in half a second, which would be 500 milliseconds. And I just want this to basically be very linear. So if I save the transition and go back into that, boom, that's not as exciting. That's kind of not as exciting. I like the other way better. Okay. But either way, it just creates a very visual effect. Now, if I double click this, and I can just play games with this. So let's go back here and let's change the X to the Y to an X. So now it's going to go this way, which is also a nice effect. See, something you probably haven't seen before. Now that's kind of like a little, oh, because I was overlapped on both of them. I see that's what happened. Okay, so looks like it's slightly a little, yeah, it's working. You just have to have your mouse over there. But that creates a very nice effect. Now these effects, of course, you could have done in Flash and JavaScript, but hey, who has Flash these days and who has time to write JavaScript? This can be done very simplistically inside of Dreamweaver with no hand coding, simply by using my CSS transitions. I will see you soon in the next video.